Hey, groovy guys and kids and cats, and let's see here. Let's see, Ted and informally hip Don and Jeremiah and Golden Bear and Kevlar and yeah, I started a little early, just noodling, just kind of getting it out of the way. Let's see here and say hi to Wayne. Again, this is super professional. We just call and talk to each other. We just do it on the fly because that's how we roll. I hope everybody's having a great day. I know Don had some great stories of hanging out with some cool people and effed up world. I'm glad you like this channel. Me too. Hey, Alchemical Tech Revolution now has his own blue wrench, so that's good. Art, welcome to you. Winston, how's my friend? Glad that you're here. Holly Berry. Let's see. I see Wayne typing there, so it looks like he's made it back to the farm. I don't really have anything in terms of housekeeping or anything like that. Other than you can of course join Rose 777 and I Tuesday and Thursday mornings right on her channel. It's Rose 777 channel. I'm sure you're all familiar with her. Already subbed to that, so you can check out the latest in the poppycock, the poppycock report. Tuesdays and Thursday mornings is 7 a.m. Well, actually it's 7 a.m. Mountain Time, so it's 6 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Mountain, 8 Central, 9 on the East Coast, and UTC -7. That's how that rolls. So let's see if I can get Wayne on the horn here, and we'll start chatting. We'll decide what we're going to do today. I had some ideas. I'm not sure if he's going to roll with it or not, but we'll see what happens. Hey, Wayne, how are you, my friend?
Greetings and salutations.
Salutations. I'm fabulous. Well, I'm fat, bald, and ugly. same as always, my friend. Hi, Sue Finelli. Hey, all the usual suspects are here. Well, happy birthday to your boy. I hear he turns the master number 11 today, so congratulations to that.
Indeed, I can't believe that was a very, very fast 11 years.
It slipped by when you weren't even looking, huh?
It sure did. My word, 10 years flies by, guys. I'm telling you.
I know.
The decades, it just fly by, and the older you get, the faster time seems to go. I don't know if there's actually something to that whole premise or not.
Well,
it sure seems that way, doesn't it?
Well, here's how I look at it, right? I mean, there could be a variety of different ways to look. This was my first way of looking at it, is that the older you get, the less percentage of your life each year is, right? So when you're 4 years old, that's a whole 25% of your life. Right? And when you're 10 years old, it's only 10% of your life. When you're my age, 'tis but a passing breeze.
'Tis but a scratch.
It's but a scratch. Indeed. So yeah, that's how I perceive it. There may be more to it. There has been people that they propose that time itself is moving faster. I don't know. I think time is. I don't know.
It's an interesting concept, but there's really no way to prove that because with how we measure time is by the rhythm of the clock. And if the rhythm of the clock moves faster, then
how would you know? How would you know?
Right.
So if the sky is turning faster, what would you do? You go, hey, there's 11 hours in a day instead of 22 hours in a day. What? I don't know how to measure that. So it is a little bit odd, but it does feel like things are moving at a faster pace, does it not? Like certainly those who are seem to be running things. Well, let's see. Formerly Hip says her theory is that more responsibility, more things to do, always on a schedule. Yeah, I mean, certainly that can make sense. And of course, Jeremiah says, to quote the song, "Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future." So we got that. Going to fly like an eagle to the sea. It does seem to be speeding by. And again, not just sometimes I'll wake up and I go, is it the weekend already? Or I look forward to the weekend and suddenly it's Monday. I'm like, oh, damn it, what happened?
Yeah, man, it flies right by. It's incredible. It's incredible the rate of speed that things go with, and especially with the power players in the world today. They're cramming a whole 10 years worth of social programming into just a couple of months here. So it's really flying.
It does seem like they're just sprinting toward the finish, does it not? Like no holes barred, man. It's like they dropped all pretense of sneaking it in anymore. They're just kind of doing it out in the open, like they have every right to do that, or like we're not going to notice, or they don't care anymore. You could interpret that a bunch of different ways, but for those of us who see it, damn, that shit's flying, man. Whoa. I don't even know what to make of it. Best I can do is just kind of laugh a little bit because, I got to say, I've said in the, and I've really, this is honestly how I felt in the last couple of months, I think, is when I started to sense that it really felt like it was happening like this, right? That it was a sprint to the finish, and that they weren't just going to let up, right? It was a little bit unnerving, like, whoa, holy crap, right? And then I started to consider the implications of that, and I thought, wow, like, wow, right? Like, I mean, are we really there? Is it really this point? And something that, I've been looking for probably all my life, right? I mean, again, my dad handed me a copy of The Unseen Hand by Epperson in, like 1984. And so, when getting your eyes open to the New World Order and that stuff in your late teens, and then 91, was it 91 or 92 that George Bush Sr. Used the term New World Order in a speech, and I was like, I just about dropped my teeth at that point. I was like, no way! Oh, here we go! And of course, little did I realize that the glacial pace at which they continue to work. But now it does seem like. I don't know, man. It seems like all the pennies are dropping, and the domino effect, they are certainly all set up. I've never seen anything like it where all the dominoes are lined up in such a way where all it takes is the flip of a switch. Like at this point, all the things that they have planned for Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 really could be done with literally the flip of a switch. If they drop the power grid, that will force everybody immediately into those dreaded FEMA camps. People would line up to get in there, right? So they could get 10 minutes of Wi-Fi, and certainly put everybody into major cities. It's the only place that we can provide services, and you can't go anywhere else. I mean, they could literally do it overnight just by claiming it was a solar flare or anything they wanted. EMP attack from China, anything they wanted to do. Yeah, an asteroid.
All the usual suspects.
All the usual suspects.
They do have all the ducks in a row now. All they got to do is throw out the breadcrumbs, and that's it, man.
Yep, exactly. So, so this is where I say, be wise. But here's the point I want to get to is that instead of being freaked out by it, although again, it's it's a little the adrenaline's pumping a little bit, but I look closer and it's like, wow, right? Like, hey, I could be. Wow, this could be going down sooner than I. After, like I said, when I was younger, I thought I was excited and thought it would happen quickly, and then you get kind of into your life and nothing really changes. As the good book says, that people look and it seems like all these things have gone on since our forefathers and nothing ever changes, and all of a sudden, sneaks up on you like a thief in the night. So,
indeed,
but get out your, make sure that you've got some of that. Some motion sensing lights. Yeah, the future is actually the present. That's right. And the future's tense or present tense. Or it's the past, the present.
It's all tense, man.
The past, the present, and the future walk into a bar and things got tense. So the jokes aren't going to get any better. Sorry about that. They never do. Doesn't keep me from telling them, but I still do it. Well, Wayne, we didn't talk beforehand because we're there's that kind of folks. We just fly by the seat of our pants, and of course that I'm not wearing any, so that makes it even more interesting. But we've been talking since we first began. This is episode 7, and it's a big number of completion and all that sort of stuff. But since we began, we started with the creation story all the way up to the deluge, and then took a look at it from a little bit different angle, looking at the book of Joshua as well as the book of Enoch. And before we go on, I wanted to kind of just pull you to see if you wanted to wrap anything there. I did have an idea that I wanted to touch on, and I don't know if we want to do it this week or we want to do it in a future episode. So tell me kind of where you're at, and then I'll let you know kind of what I'm thinking, and I know that you're ready for anything. So I have that kind of faith in you, my brother.
Well, thank you. I am pretty much ready for anything. If you do have some ideas you want to kind of wrap up here before we move on, by all means, go ahead and present it, and we can discuss it.
It's a little bit unrelated. What am I sitting on? I'm sitting on a chair, and on that chair is a blanket to keep my bum from getting crushed into the chair because the chair's the cloth is, it's like an office chair, and so I don't want that getting in any place funky. So I could put a blanket there. Let's not get too personal. And so, not trying to make anybody uncomfortable with that. It's just, I'm relaxed. That's
The
what
guy just doesn't wear pants, okay? Just
well,
deal
at
with
home, I'm not like one of those guys. I'm not like in a nudist colony or anything. It's not. I don't go outside. The neighbors don't want to see that. That's for sure. My my birthday suit needs ironing at this age, but no, I just I just become comfortable enough with my wife. Has always been that way, and she kind of got me to relax a little bit, and so it's just it's just comfortable. And so this is there's nothing between me and you but a microphone. So we got that going for us, which and some electrons. So we got that going, which is nice. No, one of the things I wanted to cover, Wayne, and again, it largely has to do with some questions that have come up, and I think it could probably use some addressing at some point, but again, it doesn't have to be now. But I thought it would be good to address at some point because it's a topic by itself without going specific through any specific set or grouping of text or scriptures, and that is basically the idea of. So I guess let me back up here, and I'll give you some of the questions, and I think you're probably familiar with this as well. And that I have repeatedly said, and again, I don't want to upset anybody by bringing it up again because it's not an uncommon question, because I have presented my viewpoints in a way of saying that I am not only am I not married to, but I am not really big on religion. And I think some people maybe have a different idea, perhaps, if we are going through the definitions here. It's a matter of semantics, and I've heard some people recently say, well, I'm not changing the definition of the word, I'm changing your relationship to it. I'm like, well, no, you can't do that. Semantics are for a reason. You have to have a definition for a word, or anything means anything. And if you're going to go that direction, you can slip anything you want in there, and that seems weaselly to me. So no, we want to make sure that we understand this. So I have presented that I don't hold to any religion, and I can explain sort of how I got here. But for me, it is entirely about relationship. It has nothing. It's not religion. And then the question kind of came back. Well, what if But if you draw your worldview primarily from a religious text, isn't that religion? I'm like, okay, I understand the premise. I get where you're coming from. But so basically the idea that I want to address is kind of that. And then the larger thing is one of the biggest, I think, hangups that people have in this viewpoint between sort of spirituality with the idea of God, right? Even a creator. And people kind of get hung up on that Jesus thing, right? Is sort of like, why the need for a savior? What does that mean? And how do we approach that? So, and why do I include that in my worldview if I don't hold to a religion? Since that does seem to be sort of to some people's view, sort of a circuitous route. And so at some point, again, I'd like to address that. I didn't know, again, if you were willing to do that today, or if you want to take it on another time and just sort of wrap up where we got going from the creation through the story of the deluge and kind of wrap that up. I'm willing to do any, but at some point, again, I do want to address that, because it's I think, an important conversation, and I think it's helpful to understand in that term why, again, from my perspective, and I know, again, you have no problem wearing the mantle of Christianity, whereas I have kind of separated myself from it, largely not because of what I think it means, but because of what it has come to mean elsewhere, the semantic drift of what people have taken it to mean. And so from my view, again, that's become a religion, and that seems to me, from my reading of Scripture, especially in the New Testament, especially as I focus on the attributes and the teachings of Jesus Christ, which is that's exactly the opposite of what he was trying to do. He was trying to destroy religion, not create it. Like, hey, I'm going to get rid of religion. Hey, that's a great idea. Let's make a religion out of it. Right? So
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
It's exactly what happened. Right. So in that sense, again, I think it's something that's great to address. And again, I don't want to necessarily just jump the track, right? I just felt like it was something that I do want to address at some point, and I think it's part and parcel of some of the things that get passed around in the truth community, and some of these ideas that show up. And again, I'm hesitant to use some specific phrases because I guess some people have adopted them, and I don't. As I said yesterday, I am absolutely not about hit piecing on anybody. I have no problem with anybody in particular. There are ideas that I think are unhelpful, and as I said yesterday, I don't think that people have ideas. I think ideas have people. These ideas have been around for a very long time, and people adopt them either from their own experience or through the whispers that come in from other influences. So, and whatever those influences might be, and we might perceive them to be something new, but there's nothing new under the sun. So even my views are not in any way unique. It's very close to the Essenes, really, and the way that they perceived things. Again, not one for one. I didn't even know that until I started studying about them. I was like, oh yeah, I totally get where they're coming from. Anyway, if that's again, if you're willing to touch on that, we can do that. Or again, I'm happy to try to wrap up where we've been in the last 6 episodes. 6 episodes with you. I've actually done the 0.5 episodes in between. But again, I'm open, and I'm also open to take questions and comments from the chat. There are 40 some people. Usually we get around between 40 and 50. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments. Even open the phone lines if you guys want to. I've got to figure out if I can actually do that because it's a Skype line, and so I have to make sure I can add people to a call and not switch between them. I had trouble with that last time because we're professional here. So Wayne, I'll let you.
Professional.
Yeah, exactly. I'll let you kind of direct a little bit and tell me what's on your mind because again, I want this to be open, and I try to hesitate. I've had several people say, "Oh, you're a great teacher," or whatever. I'm going, well, I like teaching some things, and this is a place I don't really feel like I want to take that mantle because I don't consider myself, despite the fact that I have taken a position previously as a worship pastor and a teaching pastor, worship leader, tech director. I've served in the Christian church community for a number of years back in the day, and I still even have paperwork so I can do weddings and that sort of officiate and that sort of thing. But that's not where I'm coming from right now, right? So I don't accept any mantle of authority. I don't consider myself, any kind of teacher or rabbi or anything. I'm a guy who's trying to figure it out, and I'm willing to share those views with people if they find it helpful. And so that's where I'm coming from.
Right. And I'm very much with you on that. And I love this conversation, really. And this is something I'm happy to touch upon. I do consider myself a Christian in the fact that I try my very best to follow the example of Jesus and, follow his teachings and his directives. And that's pretty much, why I wear that mantle of a Christian. As far as all the other, accoutrements that go along with that, the whole religiosity and the dogma and all of the organized church and that kind of thing, that I've kind of stepped away from because that basically is leading to somewhere other than where Christ really intended. So, I basically look at the letter of what Jesus has taught and what his intentions were and what his example was. And, the Bible is a great source for information of all different kinds, and I see basically it as being a book wherein you could find the whole of human experience within it. It's a great teaching tool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in fact, let's do that for a moment. I think that's a good jumping off point, and let's talk about the nature of that term, even Christianity. Right, what that means, because I think it does mean different things to different people, and it's one. It would be, I think it's going to be hard to nail down a general, sort of exegesis of this because the definition that people hold is largely experiential on this one, right? So, in the same way that somebody might say, oh, that person is a Democrat, right? I'm sure that has a different view to different people, right? What that actually means. Originally, and here's my understanding of it, is that the word Christian, right, was basically an epithet, right? It's sort of like little Christ, you little Christs, you're running around, you're like mini-me, you're his puppets, right? And so those followers of his said, yeah, no problem, I'll do that. That's a compliment. Thank you. And so they went by that name. And so Christian began to be a term that described those, as you said, who followed the teachings of Christ. And that would be fine for me, and I would be happy with that title. Now, of course, I just say that I try to follow the way, and that's what Jesus actually called it was the way. And he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so that is what I try to do. I've made every focus on the teachings of Christ and what his example was, and tried to work myself out from that, not as a dogmatic or even an intellectual pursuit, but within the context of a relationship, and letting my direct relationship with the power trio explain to me what their thoughts are, and what kind of beings they are, and that trying to make me into the being that they created. And that's my experience. That's my understanding of it. That primarily it comes down to this teaching of Christ: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And that on these two hang all the law and the prophets, and everything else kind of works out from that. But over time, it's begun to mean something different.
Right. And that's the whole thing. I mean, we can't really, take a hold of these definitions that people give to these things. It's something that's kind of happened over time with the way society has evolved, and the viewpoints of people. Now, there is a lot of negative connotation associated with being Christian at this point. And that's a shame, and it's kind of a sign of the times, though, as well, because we're living in a time where things that were once considered good are now considered bad, and things of that nature, because of the inversion that's going on overall in the world around us, because of the way these power players in the control system set things up, because they're trying to totally invert the natural order of things. So because of this, it's kind of been given a really bad stereotype and a really bad kind of connotation to it. And a lot of people get a bad taste in their mouth because of it, because there's so much hypocritical things that go on within the organized church and stuff itself, that people walk away from it. And they come to the realization after a while that, what? They're only preaching certain messages to people. Mm-hmm. And it's totally counterintuitive to what you would really find if you were to follow the example of Christ and really have the relationship with him and have the relationship with God. And that's the most important thing to follow. It has nothing to do with a religion in and of itself. It's a relationship with the Creator. And that's what it's all about. And, you could know what direction to go with that. I mean, this is where you find your moral compass, and you pretty much summed up everything important all in those two statements. Love God, your Creator, with all your heart, and treat others as you want to be treated yourself. And that's the whole of the law. And even the ancient rabbi, I believe it was Hillel, the ancient rabbi, had said this. All the rest is commentary. And when he said that,
pretty much
he summed that up.
No, I agree with that.
That's it.
I agree with that. And was it Saint Thomas of Assisi? The guy. Anyway, I would say Saint Malachi. No, that's I think Saint Thomas of Assisi is who I'm thinking of. And if you read some of his stuff, it's just beautiful, right? And he was trying to do the same thing, as just to follow, even though, again, he was a Catholic. A Catholic priest, basically, but at a time when that church was the whole of Christendom. But he did, at least in his writings, a remarkable job of encapsulating a lot of what some of these things look like. And I've seen some comments in chat, and these are the things I'd like to address, because some people are saying, and this is exactly what I have come to know from different people, right, is this idea that they couldn't get past this sense of having religion forced down their throat, right, and especially this idea. And there's a remark that I read from 1 John yesterday, right, that basically explicitly says, and again, just follows the words of Jesus. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by me. And that sets a pretty narrow path that then gives people this, again, this idea of like, what? So this is the only way, and if you do anything else, you're going to die, and you're going to burn in this, hellfire forever, and there's this damnation and stuff. And again, I certainly don't see it that way, but there are ways to approach it. And then there's the other aspect of it, and again, which is why I kind of wanted to touch on the idea of why the need for a savior, because most of the world's teachings, most philosophical and religious teachings, basically look like this, which is that you can, through any number of different means, through gnosis or through ability or through magic or through your will or through a variety of methods and means and methods, you can become an enlightened individual and reach Christ consciousness. And that they teach that Christ, as well as Buddha, as well as Muhammad, or a number of different people, reached a level of consciousness that allowed them to do miraculous works, and they were enlightened and illuminated, and so can you be. And that you have numerous opportunities to do that, and you're doing a recycling over and over until you get it right. And so no problem if you don't get it this time, you just come back and do it next time. And so it does seem, on one hand, sort of exclusive, right? Like my way or the highway. And it seems arbitrary. On the other hand, right, so here's this other teaching of apotheosis of self, in other words, becoming a god. And in that, these ideas that, again, here's the basic thought, right, is as long as I'm a good person and I don't harm anyone else, then I'm fine. Right, and then some of that even goes to the extreme. The really hardcore Luciferian view is my will be done, right? And moreover, get others to do my will. But I create my own morality. I create my own existence. I am the God of my world, and therefore I am all that matters. And all that matters is that. And then, if you want morality, you create that yourself. And if you don't want to hurt other people, if you want to just be good, right, do no harm, that's cool too, right? But basically, even among the vast majority of cultural Christians, the idea is basically, if I'm a decent person, I try hard, I do my best. I'm not mean to anybody. I should be just fine. I haven't done anything wrong. I didn't hurt anybody, really. I mean, all the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes. But I did okay, right? So if we do our best, let God do the rest. That's not in the Bible. But if we do that, we're going to be great, right? So what do you have to say to that, Wayne? Why is that confusing and misleading?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's go back and take a look at the beginning of this all. Okay? So here's what happens. Mankind, shortly after his creation, we don't know exactly when, was given an option. Okay? He was given the gift of free will, and he could either choose to seek after the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or he could walk away from that and still maintain his relationship with the Creator, okay? But he was given this choice, this free will. Do you want to know things? Do you want gnosis? Do you want to know stuff? Well, here's the option. You take that and you will surely die. And, so that's what happened. So mankind, all of us, have willfully walked away from God to seek out knowledge on our own, to learn on our own, rather than just ask him or take his word for it. We needed to find out for ourselves because of our free will. And we were given this gift of free will, which is probably one of the greatest gifts God has given us. So in so doing, we separated from God. Now, our God, being a very merciful and loving being, and actually being synonymous with love, created a way for us to be able to have that unification with him once again. And he did this basically as a free gift for everybody. And this is where it becomes a stumbling block for a lot of these teachers who teach about gnosis and things like that. And there's nothing inherently wrong with knowing things, okay? Or learning about stuff, or trying to seek out gnosis. But here's the thing, all right? God created a way for us as a free gift to us that anybody could accept. You don't need to seek out this gnosis, all right? So, this being said, he made this free gift available to all, lest any man should boast. And that's what it says in the Bible. It's because he created us all on equal footing with this equal gift of free will. So we all have, choices we could make.
Yep.
We all have very similar start points and similar footing to things. So we're all equal. So we all have equal access to this gift, regardless of whether you're a person who outrightly chooses to seek out this knowledge or this gnosis or not. And that's the thing, and that's a beautiful thing. It's a free gift. It's a gift for everybody.
It is.
That's kind of what we need a savior for, because if we have to keep going through this hamster wheel around and around again, which I would say maybe God in his mercy had that in mind as well, because he doesn't want to see you eternally punished or anything like that. Then, that being said, we have a better chance of getting back to that atonement with God because of this free gift he gave, rather than having to depend upon works or gnosis or any of these things. And this is where Christianity kind of separates with a lot of these other philosophies, because all that is based on works.
Yeah. Okay,
and that's where Jesus has said he's a stumbling block for these other types of religious ideas or philosophies. So that's kind of where we're at with that, and that's kind of my approach to that idea.
Okay, and here's where I will agree in part, and then probably take my own little left turn in part, and not strong disagreement, just a little bit different angle on it. So let's go back to the original where we have began with, right, with the fall of man, right? And in part, keep in mind that here's a little bit where the trick lies, is that it's not the tree of knowledge; it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the whisper there, right? The promise is that two things: one, that you will become like God, knowing good from evil. The second is that you will not die. One of those things was true. You will become like God, knowing it good from evil, because he actually said that. Behold, they have become like one of us, knowing good from evil. But
do we know that we're like God? Does God have a more in-depth knowledge of good and evil?
Well, he has.
That's the whole thing.
So here's the thing: is he has all knowledge, right? And here's the thing: is that when we take the position of becoming God and judging between good and evil, we don't have enough information to rightly judge. And so at this point, we become our own God, and we take him basically off his throne, and we say, now we're going to judge. And at this point, we even judge other people, including God. Well, if God is loving, how could he allow babies to die, right? These horrible things to happen, if that's not a loving God. And again, I can answer this for you simply by saying that he gave this world to us. Once he gave it to us and we ceded it to the enemy, he could not take it back, or it never would have been the gift to begin with. Right? It actually is ours, right? It was ours at that point. And we allowed it to become damaged. And we broke it by accepting this idea. And again, the idea of, gnosis is that there's nothing wrong, as Wayne said, I totally agree. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the idea of getting more information. I think he wants that for all of us. It says in Scripture that it's the glory of God to hide a thing and the glory of kings to seek it out. So there is nothing wrong with finding out these things. Where the difference I see is that, again, that although at some point, again, it says in Scripture that we have all stumbled and fallen short. What about babies who die, right? So again, keep in mind that this is the view that I have, and this is supported with Scripture, which basically is that once this happened, that all of mankind was doomed. We became poisoned. At that moment, all of creation groaned under the weight of sin. We became separate and imperfect. And the problem with that is that God is perfect, and imperfection cannot survive in the same space with perfection. That it would simply destroy us, not as a punishment, but as the natural result of becoming imperfect. And that separation then needed a bridge. And as you said, he worked it out. And the workaround for that, let's go back. Again, the argument from the enemy, right, is that this one, and I see it's kind of going wrong in the chat, sort of an oblique angle. And I'll point this out again. The argument primarily from the enemy is that if you give us free will and we choose to do something other than serve you, and the result of that is death, is that really free will? Is that not then punishment? Is that not then slavery? And it seems like, again, a pretty good legal argument. But when you look at it, again, in more depth, if you are created in a state of perfection, and then you choose imperfection, and you choose to separate yourself from the source of power, the power will eventually die. The ultimate end is reprobation and death. That's the ultimate end. Because if you choose imperfection, then everything other than perfection is imperfection. And that is of itself inherently evil. Intentional evil is doing the exact opposite, right? Creating harm, doing the opposite of love. That's intentional evil. And most people don't generally do that. So people do from time to time. But for the most part, right, we live in this sort of undulating thing of our heart. We want to do good, but we don't always do these good things, right? And I see these exact things in the chat. The people are putting it great, right? And so, again, Holly says, hey, here's where I get tripped up, where morality comes in, right? It comes from God or it comes from within. But if God is within, can both be true? Well, again, morality, it depends on how you define morality. The true morality, if objective truth, comes from God because he's perfect, right? And he is the very definition of love. He is perfection. There is a morality inside of us that we sort of have an inherent sense of right and wrong, but usually that right and wrong, and here it comes back to this knowledge of good and evil, is contingent on how it affects us, right? So if something bad happens, by our sense, right? If we get wounded, that's bad. So that's wrong because it harmed us and it made us, so we don't like it, right? So that's bad. And so we judge those things as being evil because it harmed us and we didn't like it, right? And that's where this mistaken concept of morality comes in, that if it's, is it moral? Okay, so is it moral to kill? No. Well, what do you do with pedophiles? You're going to kill them? We all say we want a comeuppance for them, right? So when is it good and wrong to kill? Who gets to make that choice? And ultimately, the way I see it is that without the absolute full understanding of every possible angle, you cannot really know right from wrong. And as humans, we cannot know that. We only have a limited viewpoint, and that limited viewpoint is going to be in error if for no other reason than data anemia. You simply don't have all the information. This has been shown in like even numerous advertisements that were funny. IKEA did these a number of years ago. Don't jump to conclusions. And people walk into a set of circumstances and it looks like, oh my gosh, one thing, but the whole setup was something completely different, right? It just looks really bad when you see it. And so we look at a thing and we judge whether it's right or wrong without having all the information. And largely, we make those decisions based on how it affects us, right? How it affects us. Ultimately, the need for a savior, and I'll get back to this point, right, is that we are born into this world already poisoned. There is no choice. We're doomed to death. Right? And I'm not talking about burning forever in hellfire, but what I am talking about is ultimate separation from the Creator simply by virtue of the fact that we're damaged goods at this point. It's not your fault, right? It's not your fault. You did not do anything wrong for this to happen. However, as a result of this, you have done things wrong. I have done things wrong, right? I once did an exercise when I was doing counseling with some people because, again, this idea that all the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes. And if you ask anybody and you say, are you a good person? Do you know anybody who would say no? Very few people who would, unless they're a little bit, sociopathic. Most people would say, yeah, I'm a good person. And if you do this exercise and go, okay, think of all the laws that you can, everything from speeding and running red lights and stop signs and all the stuff, jaywalking and everything. Have you ever broken any of those laws ever? Well, yeah, we all have, whether by intention or neglect. We all have. Okay, now run all those up in your mind. Let's say even for those of us who, for example, we smoked marijuana back in the day when it was illegal, right? And so you add all those up, and if you were to get convicted and serve the maximum sentence for each of those convictions, how long would you be in jail? If you think it through, it's a little scary because I can immediately come up with tens of thousands of years of penalty that I would have to do for inadvertent mistakes, things that I didn't even mean to, much less the friends. Dark Glasses Woody says, I had more friends when I was a jerk. You know why? Because the world loves its own. Right, and Jesus said specifically that the more you follow me, the more the world will hate you. right? And then is this idea: do we get to do it over and over again? Again, I can say I don't know. It's one of those things I don't know for sure. I can say that it is in Scripture. Hebrews 9:27 says it's appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. So according to the Scripture, it seems to imply that there is not a reliving over and over, and it seems a little pointless to me if you do get your memory wiped and scrubbed, and it's a full game reset every time. How could you know? How could you do any better every time? Right? What it seems to me as I watch the history of humanity is that it continues to degrade. And so it's not getting any better. It's getting worse and worse. And so if the game was you're trying to get better with each replay, that's simply not happening. There are, on the other hand, I've had experiences that would probably best be described as some sort of either, reliving it, or I'm absorbing the information and the memory of somebody else who lived before. That's a possibility too. Frankly, I don't know. But if I went strictly with what I saw in Scripture, I would say that it seems to strongly imply that there's, that is not the case. Again, I'm not trying to poke anybody's ideas. I'm just saying there's a lot of these things. Again, if you take them as a philosophical exercise, you can work out almost anything you can imagine, because it's sort of open-ended on the one hand. You can come up with anything that kind of makes sense. My experience with Dad is that a lot of things don't make sense in that way, because he's way bigger and way smarter than I am. And every time he reveals things to me, I'm like, oh, I totally didn't get that. Yeah, okay. So that's been my experience. And then what he says is true, right? His ways are not our ways, and we are not like him. We are made in his image, and so we are like him in many ways. But when it comes down to our thought processes and our ability to see and discern things, we simply don't in the same way he does. And that's where, again, I find it much more valuable in my experience over time to learn to trust him. He is perfect, and he is beautiful, and the very definition of love, and everything that he does is kind and good and loving. And ultimately, when I learn to trust that implicitly, then I can say, as Job did, though he slay me, I will trust him. Right? That it doesn't matter if bad things happen to me, because he loves me. And I understand that if I trust him in this and I follow everything that he asked me to do, that I'm in the right place at the right time, and it's going to serve his purpose. But ultimately, the reason for the need of a Savior is that you're, as I described in yesterday's stream, right? The whole thing is like, if the goal here is to jump the Grand Canyon, right? Learning to jump 40% further, that may be awesome, but you're still going to splat in the bottom. If you can jump 50 feet further by some magic spell, and you can jump 150 feet, supernatural, you're still going to fall in the bottom and die. The ship is sinking, and there is only one provided lifeboat. And if you choose to go, fuck that, I don't want that lifeboat, it seems like some trap to me, okay, you get to make that decision. But when the lifeboat is there and you're being offered a seat on it, why? What is so abhorrent about the teachings of Jesus, other than I'm the way, the truth, and the life? What is so abhorrent about that triggers people to not want to at least investigate it, other than the actions of Christians? And I'll have to go with that.
I'm with you there. I think that's 100% the reason why people don't want to look at it, the actions of Christians, because they do, by and large, many of the different denominations of Christianity, they push like way too hard people with this stuff and beat them over the head with it. And people don't respond to that well. They don't like somebody pushing their religious viewpoints on them and that kind of thing. And here's my point of view when it comes to that. You're right. You're offered the seat on the lifeboat. Well, why turn it down? Because here's the thing. Okay, maybe we do come back again, but maybe we don't. And here's the thing. What if we don't? And you're taking a gamble that we do.
Exactly. I'm saying, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I'm saying, I don't know.
I would say accept the free gift and, have the sure thing. What does it hurt? I mean, what do you have to lose? Like, here's the thing. If you follow the Christian point of view and the Christian philosophy on things, and follow Christ and do that, what have you got to lose? That's the thing.
That
I
is
mean,
pretty much.
if you're wrong, okay, not a big deal. But here's the thing: what if the other way is wrong? Like, what if you don't come back? What if you don't have a second chance
Right.
at it? That's the thing. I mean, we were offered this free gift. What does it hurt to really look into these things and pursue these things? Because honestly, I haven't found anything that Jesus taught that I find like outrageous. And like you said, I think a lot of that relates to the hypocrisy of Christians.
Yep.
And that is the largest point that pretty much encapsulates what society views Christians as and Christianity as. It's because of the Christians that go out there and try to portray themselves as being these perfect people when nobody's perfect, and all have fallen short of the glory of God. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's a given. I mean, there's nobody that could present themselves as a perfect picture or a perfect example. And that's why it's important that you look at Jesus as the example, because that's the only one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, one of the things that I have done in my life is work kind of as an efficiency expert within the context of the field that I was in, and it's because I have just good at pattern recognition, that sort of stuff, and going through all the data mining. But I came to this in my 20s. That what you mentioned is exactly what I came to. Is that if I put all the things on the playing field, right, and said, okay, what are the results if each one is right, and what are the results if each one is wrong, right? So ultimately, with the understanding that we are playing a game for your very soul here, right? So it's not a game; it's life and death on a scale that is unimaginable. And so, what are the outcomes if each one is right and each one is wrong? What do you have to lose? What do you have to gain? And ultimately, what I came to was, if all things were equal, and ultimately I have come to find that they are not. But even if they were, if all the things were equal, right? What the possibilities of a positive result versus a negative result. The one thing that for sure stood out, right, was that if any of them were wrong, if I were wrong on any of them, ultimately you could be disappear, right? Your end, there's no ending. Okay, so that's one, right? Or if there is a separation from a creator, so you go through all this stuff. The one thing about following Christ was that it had no downside other than to look foolish. Right? That was the only downside, was that you might look like an asshole. And I thought, well, nobody wants to look like an asshole. But then I started really studying into the teachings of Christ, going, well, the only way you're going to do that is to do the opposite of what Paul says, right? Which is to try to be a legalistic jerk and then tell everybody how well you're doing and how bad they're doing. And that's the only real way you be a jerk, which is, again, most of Christianity, because they follow a legalistic dogma, which says, I'm doing it right and you're doing it wrong. Right? So I'm good and you're bad. And when you actually follow the wisdom and the teachings of Jesus, which has nothing to do with that, right? Which is to love others and give of yourself and to not oppose evil. Right? And it's like, what do you mean don't oppose evil? We're supposed to call it out. Again, you take a look at some of the Old Testament stuff, and within their own group, they were supposed to call each other out because they were supposed to keep their group safe. When you get to the teachings of Jesus, what he says is trust Dad for everything. Even if those people are trying to sue you, take your coat, beat you up, don't resist them, right? Because Dad's got it covered. And so when you do that, and my experience has been, it is, in the short term, it can be very frustrating, right? It can be very lonely, and it can be very, frustrating is immensely challenging. But ultimately, at the end of the day, right, the value that I have found in learning to love and learning to accept love is of such immense import and value that it makes everything else pale by comparison. There is nothing that compares with being able to genuinely love people and receive the love of your Creator, and to know that your Creator loves you in a way that you can't even kind of comprehend, right? Like, why would you find me valuable at all? I'm a doofus, man. I'm a tard. I mean, and I'm at times bad. I mean, I'm selfish at times, and he sees me in a way that is beautiful because he made me. And when he convinced me of that, and got me to accept that kind of love and then share it with others, that has been so life changing and so affirming, that is what I wanted to share with people, not the idea of even salvation from the potential of hellfire and damnation, because I don't really buy that. Right? I don't see that, other than there's a couple of things in Scripture that kind of point to it under specific circumstances having to do with specifically the mark of the beast. It does talk about that, but beyond that, everything else, it simply says that the second death is simply separation from God and eternal destruction, that you just go away, and that does seem to be, to me, to be consistent with the Creator that I know, who does not want anyone should perish, and it is simply separation. Imperfection is destroyed when all things are made new, and it just goes away. Right, it just goes away, but those who accept the mark of the beast, it does appear that perhaps they accept the lie of having sort of an immortality, and that immortality means that they cannot go away. and they will suffer.
Yep.
When that occurs, and so they've got no place to go. They can't then be destroyed. So the enemy makes good on his promise to give them a sort of immortality, but that means that they cannot be destroyed, and that they would suffer eternally, and that would suck.
Right, and I actually write about that concept in my first book, actually, because that's one of the chapters. Are they building their own hell? And that's basically what I foresee as being happening here with this whole idea of the mark of the beast. If you take it, you could achieve this immortality. You could upload your consciousness into a machine, and therefore your consciousness would exist in this computing cloud for eternity. And think about that for a second. There would be no possible way of reunification with God. And this could be the ultimate hell, especially if you put an artificial intelligence control grid in charge of it, and it could redirect it into whatever type of mainframe or type of physical existence or virtual existence that it wants to. This could be eternal torment. And the book of Revelation also speaks of, in those days men will seek death and it shall flee from them. And this is basically, kind of how I foresee the whole thing going down with that. And that would also be why this would be pretty much the unforgivable sin, the accepting of this mark, because once you do it, there's no turning back. And I don't think it's that, for the lack of the mercy of God for you. It's just once you
Absolutely
do that,
not.
Then the eternal separation is really there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's no turning back after that.
Yep.
And that could be one possibility. I mean, that's speculation on my part. I can't back that up with anything other than a little bit of reasoning and common sense, and knowing some of the Scriptures and knowing how these technologies work and what they have planned for them.
Sure.
But
and that's
I mean, it's definitely a feasible thing. So once again, when you look at that, when you're looking at, say, Christians as being the ones that are kind of pushing this legalistic type of thought process with things, Jesus came to fulfill the law. He told us that, to fulfill the law.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about that anymore because of the acceptance of that free gift. Like, yeah, you're not, it's still not right to like murder somebody or something like that, and people will know that, but it's one of those things where you can't just stick to all that legalism the way that many Christians do, and use this as kind of the cudgel to beat people over the head with it, to convince them they're sinners. Everybody inherently knows that they've done wrong in their life, and that we are born into this imperfect system, and we all have sinned. So it's not something that it's not our place as fellow human beings to bring this stuff to the attention of these other human beings, their sin nature and stuff like that, when they inherently know that they have that sin nature, and it's not our place to convict them of that. The Holy Spirit convicts them of that.
But there are some again who are teaching that there is no such thing.
Right.
That you create it yourself, and it's your own damnation. And again, here's what I would have to say to the whole legalistic thing, right? And again, just to springboard off what you said, that Jesus fulfilled the law, according to Galatians 5:14, the entirety of the law is fulfilled in one decree: love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. right? And that is the most difficult thing. Let me tell you that I have spent the last 30 plus years attempting to do that, and I would say poorly. Because it is more challenging than keeping any set of 10 laws, any set of 632.
Yep.
It is the most difficult thing to love the unlovable, right?
Right. Some people are very unlovable and they're very unlovely. So it makes it very difficult.
Right.
It really truly does.
And the only way to do that, from my perspective, is supernaturally. And the only way that can happen is to receive the love of Dad. And I see, again, Nemo says it. He nailed it, right? He says, I tried to be nice, but everybody else is an asshole, right? So then you look like an asshole and you're trying to be nice and you're going to get kicked in the teeth over and over again, right? And simply trying to be nice, to me, doesn't quite get it, right? Because it's you're doing it with your will. Right. And so then you get frustrated and you're like, oh, fuck, man. Right. You just it's not worth it. Right. It becomes like, OK, the only way to get ahead is to go along to get along. Right. But ultimately, again, from Romans, right. Romans 13 says, owe nothing to anybody except to love one another. For he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. Right. And so, again, how do you do that? The only way that I know of in my experience, right, is to come into personal relationship with the Creator. And that is not, this is where I go round and round. That is not a religion. It is not right living that brings you into relationship. It is not what you do that makes then Dad say, oh, this one's good. Okay, you're working hard. Okay. People want to take, God helps those who help themselves. That's not in Scripture, right? That's not what it says. It says He meets us where we are. All we have to do is say, yes, Dad, I trust you. Yes, I want help. I need help. I can't do it myself, right? And if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask, right? And so this is where I keep saying, right? And again, I don't want to step on any toes here because I'm not. It's not about any person, but it is about certain teachings, right? Which are like, hey, I'm going to teach you the secret stuff, right? If you pay me a certain amount per month, or you give me a certain amount of money, or you do the things that I say, right? I'm going to show you the secret stuff in the dark. This stuff is all out in the open. I don't have the wisdom to give you. I don't have anything to sell you. I don't ask for your money. That's not why I'm here, right? I'm here to share with you as best I can what I've learned. And some of these things are very difficult propositions. As I say, learning to love yourself is one of the most difficult propositions that I've ever gone through. It is far easier for me in some cases to love people that are assholes than to love myself, because I know where the bodies are buried, right? I know what skeletons are hidden in my closet, and I know what I'm capable of. And the fact that Dad loves me anyway, and not just loves me, but loves me in this exorbitant way that is indescribable, right? Just unbelievable. This is then when you receive that, and when it enters you, then only then can I go, oh, I get it. All right, I get how now I want to share that with other people, right? And so it doesn't matter when they are hateful to me. I don't take it personally, right? Because it's not about me, right? It's because they're hurt inside. I can see it so much more clearly. I see that hurt people, right? And so I understand that they behave that way because they're afraid. And I keep saying that the opposite of love is not hatred, but fear. People are afraid. They're deeply afraid, and they want so badly for someone to tell them what to do. I see this over and over. Just tell me what to do. Give me the secret, right? You're going to go out and you're going to stomp the ground and wait for some magic to occur, and you're going to turn into a giant. Fuck, who knows, man? You're going to go have some sex ritual in the woods. Man, that's not... Just ask Dad. The guy,
right.
The being who created everything perfectly, including you, knows everything about you. He knows your heart, right? And he wants you to be fulfilled with satisfaction. Why? Jesus said very clearly, right? If you, being evil, when a kid asks you for a piece of candy, are you going to give him a rock? No, it's not unless you're an asshole. Right? If they ask for food, do you give them a brick? No, you give them food. Why? Right? Because you're compassionate. And especially if it's your child, you give them good things. You give good gifts. So if you then, being human, know how to give your children good gifts, how much more does the Creator of all things, who created you and exorbitantly loved you so much that chose himself to take on this burden, this legal argument that death was required. He took the death penalty for you instead. How much love is that, right? And to then to say, no, fuck that. I don't want that. I'm going to do it myself. I'm smart.
Right.
I'm smart enough. I'm good enough. I can do this. That's kind of a slap in the face. But again, that's not the point for me. The point is, once you learn the exorbitant love and experience it for yourself,
It's life changing.
it is
Absolutely,
ultimately
it is.
life changing. Yeah.
And here's the thing where a lot of Christians get it wrong, and a lot of people who actually observe Christians, this is where they get it wrong. Here's where it is. Here's the thing, and you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier there. Right living does not lead to relationship with God.
Yep.
Relationship with God leads to right living. And that's an important distinction people need to make. You're not going to be able to follow the letter of the law like perfectly, and and like you said, then Dad says, "Okay, I can see you're trying hard. Okay, here I am now." It doesn't work like that. Reach out to God. He'll meet you where you're at, and then you could start to love your neighbor as yourself, and love God, and see exactly how He works, and the goodness and the mercy that is our Creator. And that's the whole thing. It's a very personal relationship, and once you've been in that type of communion with God and understand that personal relationship and have that, it's life changing. It really
It's not
truly
only,
is.
yep.
It makes you view things differently. You see your fellow man differently than you would before.
Yes, and it's not only life changing, but it also gives you the perspective, again, like I have, which is it's not my business to tell you what to do. I can't tell you what you have to or should do for your life. I can encourage you and say, hey, this worked really well for me. It's the only thing that I've ever come up upon that literally changed my life, and not just mine, but other people that I've met and know. Right. So this has been profoundly, supernaturally effective, but it's not my business to tell you how to walk your walk out and where to go. I can offer you, again, these my suggestions, right? Like this is what I know, but ultimately, boy, do I know that needing to forgive yourself, that is one of the most difficult things to do.
That is, it definitely is, but it's something that we have to learn to do. We all make mistakes, and that's the bottom line. We all make mistakes. We all have different regrets. We need to learn to forgive ourselves and put that behind us and move forward and learn from the experience. And that's the whole key right there. Learn from the experience, because if you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again, you're not learning. And then it just piles up more and more, and it becomes harder and harder to forgive yourself for something along those lines. So, and if you can't forgive yourself of something, how could you forgive your neighbor of something?
Yeah, a very personal
that's
one.
Basically it.
A very personal and poignant one. I mean, for me, that I relive, every year. 23 years ago this week, my very best friend lost Jim to depression, and he ended his own life. And we were closer than brothers. I don't know how to express that. Our girlfriends would often make fun of us because we were like joined at the hip, and we would always hang out with each other rather than them. And it was just, it wasn't like in a prison way, but we had been the best of friends for a very long time, and musicians and songwriting partners. And we often even said, we were never so good as when we were together, and we were never so bad as we were together. We could get in all kinds of trouble. But he went through some difficult times and challenges, and there was a moment where, again, this was just after I had moved from North Central Texas, where we all grew up, to Washington State, and just a matter of weeks. And on my way, I had meant to talk to him about some things and to send him a gift. His birthday was coming up, and some things happened, and I didn't. And then it was right after that this happened. I back in the day, I paged him, and he didn't. It was the first time ever he hadn't returned my page, and I was really worried. And then the very next day, I discovered what had happened, and I could not for years get rid of that guilt that I had let him down. I've let my friend down, and I wasn't there for him. And it took years, right, of really working through this time. Really, intellectually I understood his decisions were his, and I couldn't affect that. But nevertheless, when this, we were always there for each other, and suddenly I wasn't. right? And I left, and there was a plan. I mean, we had planned that all three of us were going to move. All three of us in the band were going to move up to Seattle and take advantage of some connections that I had and some things going on. And I'd taken a job for a major recording studio that was owned by a major record label, and that was going to be a stepping stone. But depression hit hard, and so we lost him. And again, I never, even to this day, I haven't been able to fully let go of the guilt that comes. But more recently, I have been able to lay down and at least acknowledge, right, that what my actions did, and that I might have been able to give him a little bit more hope if for a moment. Might it have changed things? Maybe, but that's frankly, I had to learn a lesson there of disobedience, right? I was supposed to do things and I didn't do them. And I really had to wander through some pain there, going of all the times that I was disobedient, why this one would cost the life of my best friend. Now, I don't think Dad sees it that way, but that's how I felt about it. That I was disobedient in one minor thing. And all the other ways that I had been disobedient, I mean, God, that should have been, any of those things should have been more important. And this was the one that really hurt. But with that knowledge, I'm no longer willfully disobedient. That's a super learning lesson for me, right? So when Dad asks things of me, even if I don't understand or don't want to, or it seems like a trivial thing, how do I know what the result might be if I just ignore that little poking and prodding, right? Like I did Saturday. Like I didn't want to say some of the things that I said. It's kind of uncomfortable. It's a little bit out of character. I use unintended consequences more for one platform, and the Sunday streams a little bit more spiritual, and I kind of mixed those up a little bit. But at the direct result of the poking of Dad, but I have learned I must be obedient to those little pokings and proddings, because I don't know what the result long-term effects might be. And conversely, I've seen other things where I was poked to just do something kind for somebody. It didn't matter. I mean, there was no skin off my nose, or it even was a difficult thing, and they didn't seem to, accept it or appreciate it at all. And only do I find out many years later that it had a profound impact. Right, that a kind word, well placed, really helped someone, right? Or it helped somebody get a job, or things that happen, and those positive things that I never knew. I never had any instant feedback from, and so I could have just quit doing those things. But to later find out that it had a profound impact on somebody is, again, that's food for the soul. And so that's one of the reasons I say when you guys send little notes of encouragement, and you express how little things have helped you, that's encouraging for me, right? And keeps me going, because this is not always an easy thing to do, right? And to be not only transparent, but vulnerable, right? And just explain these things, and people always want to fight about it, right? Especially these topics, and, oh, how can you be, it's like, I don't, it shouldn't matter, right? Well, why does it matter to you what I think and believe? I'm not holding it over anybody's head, and I'm not saying anybody else has to think and believe the way I do. I'm simply sharing what has worked for me, and the way that I see the world. If it's appealing, and if it offers hope to you, perfect. I love that. If it doesn't, again, eat the meat, throw away the bones. That's what I do, right? So yeah, I just want to share that personal experience about, again, obedience and forgiveness. Right, that it is so important to forgive yourself, because if you continue to beat yourself up for things, and to forgive other people, right? So many times we hold on to bitterness and hostility toward others for slights that might not have even been intended, right? And unforgiveness is basically like, drinking rat poison and waiting for the rat to die. The only person it harms is you, right? And so it eats you up with bitterness and hatred for the other person. And there is a person that, this is an actual story, a person that my sperm donor knew, and he's not a great guy. He's passed away now, but he was bright, and he did have some insight into things. And one of the things, a story that he told me, was that there was a guy that he knew, he had gone to college with, and he married his college sweetheart, and they were together for a short period of time, about 4 years. And he was in school, and so still struggling, and he was, I can't remember, I think he was an engineer of some kind. Anyway, his wife had an affair, and it really kind of broke him up, and they, fought it out, and she basically left him for the other guy. and they ran off, and so he was devastated. And he fell into drinking, and he didn't graduate school, and his life was basically a wreck. And then he would regularly get drunk and then just go through, and again, this was way back in the day, late 60s, early 70s, and he would start work as a traveling salesman. So everywhere he would go, he would get a phone book at the hotel and just start looking for the guy's name. And if he'd find somebody's name that was the guy's name, he'd call him up and start harassing him and trying to find this guy. And he went for more than 20 years trying to track these guys down until finally he found a place and got a name and a number and called, and it turned out it was the mother of the guy. It was his parents. The guy had the same last name. It was the parents. And turns out that within the first 18 months that his wife and the other guy had run away, they had died in a car accident. And he'd spent more than 20 years of his life as a miserable drunk, chasing down people who were dead. It ruined his life because he didn't forgive. It has a pretty stark lesson in what unforgiveness can do. It ruined his life, right? And I mean, I understand the pain of having people cheat on you. Trust me, it's happened to me firsthand more than once. But to go through that kind of obsession, right, and to try to harm other people and get them back, right, will ruin your life. So in addition to forgiveness of yourself, you must forgive others, and not as a command, but just as a way to release yourself of the prison that you put yourself in.
Absolutely. And sometimes that could be the hardest thing to contend with, is the unforgiveness of yourself for things. And like you were talking about, when you do have those pokings or proddings from dad to do something, it's important that you do it. And this is something I personally struggled with for many, many years before I actually came forward and started doing this type of stuff. Because, it was something that I had kind of struggled with within my soul, myself, is because, having been, a born-again Christian and doing this whole, church thing and being heavily involved with it and everything else, when I would have the yearning to start looking at these different types of materials, which were occult in nature, I struggled with that, because here's the thing. God had been poking and prodding me for many, many, many years to pursue these different things, to look at this information and come to different understandings of it. And I fought with that because I thought, no, that can't possibly be the Spirit of God directed me to do this. And I fought and I struggled. And no matter how many times he hit me over the head with a mallet and said, hey, stupid, it's me. I'm telling you, I want you to go ahead and pursue this. This is important. I'm like, no, this can't be, from the Spirit of God telling me to do this stuff. And, it took me a long time and a lot of struggle, and I struggled with this internally myself without even talking to anybody about it, until one day, a couple of years ago, I opened up to my wife about it. And, I told her I had been researching all this stuff, because I'd always had this kind of an interest in these things, because growing up I had some weird supernatural type experiences and things of that nature, and had always been interested in, things like ghosts and UFOs and the occult and all kinds of strange things like that. And it's something I largely walked away from when I became a born-again Christian. And I put all that stuff in my past behind me. And then I had a UFO encounter one night, and that renewed my interest in these subjects. And I started looking at it, and I felt the conviction of God telling me, yes, look into this. I have something important in store for you with this stuff. And I thought, no, that can't be God. God would not direct me to look at this stuff, because I was, at that point in my life, so indoctrinated with the dogma of the church and
Right.
the organized religious structure that I was beating myself up, and I struggled. I struggled with this. And back at that time, there was it's nothing like it is now. We could find people now, online on Facebook and on YouTube and different platforms like this podcast, people to talk to about these conspiratorial type topics and things, and about different occult philosophy and things like that. nature and, religious and spiritual teachings, all different avenues of thought like this. And then, I mean, I toiled with this stuff in silence myself for many, many years. And that's kind of how I became just hungry for this information and this knowledge. And I devoured everything that I possibly could find of it.
I think it's.
And it wasn't until I actually opened up and I had this conversation with my wife and I just laid my heart out before her. And, that's when it finally hit me.
Well,
And, the conviction finally hit me. Yes, it is God telling me do this. It's not just, it's not something else. And this is what he laid down the path for me. And it's been very synchronistic ever since. It's just totally weird because there was no path forward for this. I just, in faith, I set out to write my first book with no avenue of thought as to how I would publish it, where I would go with it, who would even look at it. Like, I'm a nobody. Nobody knows who in the world am I. Like who's going to be interested in this? But as an act of faith, I started writing it. And lo and behold, I come to find out that my best friend as a child, Jason Lindgren, was actually very heavily influential within this type of a research community. I had no idea. Honest to goodness. I had heard Crow 777 on the hired side chats once or twice, and I always was kind of drawn to a lot of his ideas and the way he spoke. There was like something there that just kind of caught my attention that really resonated with me. But I had no idea he even had a podcast, first of all, and then second of all, that my best friend that I had lost touch with for 25 years was his co-host. And we just got reconnected by what we'll say is chance, quote unquote chance, one day on Facebook. He had commented on a mutual friend's post or something about social engineering, and I saw that post. And I replied to it, and lo and behold, the light bulb went off in both our heads, and Jason got back in touch with me.
That's awesome.
And it made a path forward for this where none existed. So when I tell people, you listen to God, he'll open the doors for you, I'm not kidding. Like, and this is where I'm at today. And I do sincerely have, some regrets, and I had for a while some forgiveness issues for myself for resisting the Spirit of God in pursuing this avenue, because many, many, many times I had been compelled to, speak up and say something to somebody in particular about different things, or to try to take some kind of action with this stuff, and I resisted. And who knows how many other people needed that message at that time that I didn't reach. And that's what we could never know. But you do have to get past that and forgive yourself of these things, and I've been able to do that. And now, I mean, it's still a struggle. I mean, this stuff's not easy. Putting it out there in public, like this is my personal stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is my personal life. I'm putting on display right here, but I felt compelled to do that just now. Kind of a poking and a prodding from the Holy Spirit to do that.
What's required.
So that's why I'm saying that right now. But I mean, this is exactly what's going on. It's hard to be a public figure. Anybody who had known me more than, say 3 years ago, I'm a very introverted person. Okay. I'm not somebody who was ever keen on public speaking of any sort. So this was really something that kind of came out of left field for me. And, I was not prepared for, but lo and behold, you listen to God, he opens the doors and he makes the way. And, I guess people resonate with the message that I put out. And that's all God. That's all him. That's not me. And I tell people all the time, people seem to think I'm some kind of a genius or something with this stuff. I'm not. Okay. I'm a regular dude. I'm just listening to God, and he's just opened certain knowledge to me because of this, and because of, following his calling. And that's the whole thing. If you listen to him, he makes things evident to you that you never picked up on before. And I don't know how many times, like I've been looking at something here, and I've just had the inspiration hit me. Hey, this is what this means, or this is what this is, without any prompting from anywhere else. And then lo and behold, I would go and I would look at a couple different sources that might have a little bit of authority in this type of a thing, and it lines up. So it's like, it's hard to describe, but it's something like people need to just listen to the voice of God. It's that still small voice. And if you just ask him, he'll speak to you with this, and he'll help you direct your paths. He'll help find you your way. You just have to put the trust in him and have that relationship with him. And you don't get there by following dogmatic rules out of a book.
That's for sure.
Okay?
And
You just have to ask. It's a free gift. And that's the gist of it all. And, back to what we were talking about, though, the forgiveness aspect of it, that's one of the hardest things for people because, especially when you're talking about yourself, because like you said, where the bodies are buried, all the wrong you've done, what you're capable of. And sometimes it's hard to forgive yourself because you've hurt people and you've done wrong things and you truly have the regret for them. And sometimes it's something that can't be fixed. And, it's hard to forgive yourself, but you need to find the compassion to do that because you need to be able to, kind of step away from yourself and look at it as if, you're looking at it from a third person perspective and be able to forgive yourself that way. It's just one of those things. And it's hard. It's hard to do, but you need to be able to do it just in order to better love your neighbor. And that's what it's all about.
I love that you told that story because there's so much in there. I just want to go, yes, right? Like one of the things for sure, right, is that when you were open and honest with your wife and you told her what was going on, honesty and transparency is the key, right, to all this. And you cannot, lie to yourself, and you cannot withhold, especially from dad, right, what's going on in your heart. So the key there, transparency and honesty, open the door. But moreover, one of the things that I noticed in the story that you tell, right, is that all the things, this has been so true in my life, is that there is no waste in God's economy. Right? It says in Scripture that all the things that were meant for bad, meant for evil, he can use for good. And I have found this in my life, like all the things that, recently interaction with somebody and specifically dealing with the idea of duality versus polarity and going through that and the accusation, you just don't want to look at this because you're afraid of it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I explored that when I was 15, man. I've been through all of it, right? I went through all of these things. And I went directly away as far and as fast as I could from Dad. I could tell stories, and maybe sometime I will, of I did some stuff, man, and I embraced it. I embraced evil in my life for a period of time, and it felt powerful. And so I'm well versed in all the doctrines. But again, what's happened is that those are things that now I understand, right? I understand better, and so Dad has used it for his purpose, right? So he's given me a way to look at that. Certainly, all the things in my life that I thought were painful and I didn't want to go through, right? I've lost everything I've owned at least 3 times, right? Just pretty much everything. Those are difficult things to go through, but certainly one of the things that you come to is that stuff is just stuff. Right, it's replaceable. It is the primary thing is your relationships with people, and as Joe, Timeless Journey, and I are talking about the friend that we lost, Jim, in the chat, right, as well as like I would give anything. I would give all my stuff again, right, just to have time again with Jim, right, and so it's the relationships that are the most important things, right, and so when we kind of work that out and understand that forgiveness is such a necessary part of relationships, including the forgiveness of ourselves, and to have a healthy relationship with ourselves, and to not ignore that. That is one of the biggest keys that I've had in my relationship with Dad, is them helping me understand these aspects, right? That what all they're trying to do is to remove the parts that they didn't create. And what makes it the difficult part is when I don't want to let go. That's what makes it painful. And so that's a difficult one. to work through. But again, I find that Dad is always right and always kind. And so all the painful things in my life that I would never have wanted to go through, I understand now that's part of what made me who I am now and why I have compassion, right? So almost being homeless a few years ago gave me such a sense of compassion and love for people who are homeless. I would have never had thought. I mean, my upbringing, basically upper middle class, feast and famine sometimes because I was involved in the entertainment industry, and so I made a lot of money, and then I would struggle for a little while, and then do well again. But I never worried about money like that. It just didn't come to me. And so my ideas were the basic that, people who were in that situation, it's because they either wanted to, they just, they become inextricably, drawn into drugs and, or whatever. And they just didn't want to deal with society, and they preferred that life. But even those who do that, again, I would have never had the understanding and compassion about what a difficult road it is, to not have support, right? To not have what we think of as a regular life, right? I would have never have had that in my heart, to be compassionate to people in that way if I had not been through it myself, and to lose people that were close to you, and sometimes to lose people through arguments that you didn't start and misunderstandings that were not your fault, right? But we might have contributed to, and even the things that went wrong that were my fault that I did contribute to, right? All those things are learning experiences that have helped me grow into the person that I am now, and what kind of person am I now? Well, hopefully better than I was, not near what I should be, but certainly not what I used to be. And from my perspective, again, I owe all of it to my relationship with Dad, and to that change in my heart brought by love, right? And learning to love myself and to love others. And that is the primary thing. So when we get down to this idea of religion versus relationship, that to me, again, I walk completely away from religion, understanding that it is a box, and people get very uncomfortable when the edges of the box get tweaked. When Dad asks you to do something that is against their religion, it says right here in the Bible, yeah, but Dad's asking me to do this, right? Yeah, but he would never do that because, okay, how does he feel about human sacrifice? Well, what did he tell Abraham to do? You know what I mean? It's like you got to trust him, and that the only way to do that is through relationship and experience of time. And so I do. That's the one thing I worry about people who. I say it's none of my business what other people believe and what they do, but it's the one encouragement where I feel a sense of urgency, right, is that my experience of trusting Dad to that extent came over a long period of time and numerous circumstances of real trials and really heartbreaking circumstances. It doesn't come overnight. There is the initial rush of new love, just like there always is when you have that first experience of love. There's that first rush, right? And sometimes I think people have seen it with those who have had a conversion experience, right, or whatever, and they want to tell everybody about it. But it takes time. And it does feel like we said at the top of this program that it feels like we are out of time in some ways. Like things are moving at such a pace that there's just a scramble now just to survive. And if you don't learn to listen closely to that still small voice among the cacophony of so many voices and whispers, it may be very difficult. And so I daily I keep people in prayer that they would be able to hear and discern the difference between truth and lies and between good and evil, because evil very rarely comes up and says, hey, I'm evil, right? It says, I'm freedom. It says, do what you want, right? You make your own world. This is, you're the God, right? That seems free until you realize that it's not. That ultimately it leads away from love. And love is the only thing that saves you.
Well said. Very well stated. That's actually beautiful. So, yeah, basically when it comes down to it, this discussion tonight, religion versus relationship, the relationship is all that matters in the end, and your relationships with your fellow human beings. That's all it comes down to. When we leave this place, when we take our last breath, it's not important, you know, what we had while we were here. What's important is the relationships we had with the people that were here while we were here, and it's the legacy we leave behind. It's how people remember us, how we affected others in positive ways, because people will forget about you bought them this or you bought them that, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's an important thing for people to understand. So if you made somebody's day better, just by your mere presence there or something, or by them having known you, or you having said something profound to them at some point in their life, they never forget that. But what they do forget is the superficial, stupid things that people seem to get hung up on. So that's basically what it all comes down to. It's all about relationships at the end of the day. And like I said, when we take our last breath here, that's all that matters is, do you have the right relationship with God, first of all? And did you have right relationship with the people that you cared about here, or about your fellow human being in general? Did you show your neighbor love? Did you do that stuff?
Yeah,
And that's what it all matters at the end of it all.
yeah. And how did we get here? Ask a great question in chat. So what do we do? Go out and protest and tell people, or sit back and live a basic life? And here's my initial reaction to that. Right? It is, again, I think it kind of takes all of it, right, in a way. To do my advice to anybody is to spend time with Dad and ask Dad. If anybody lacks wisdom, let them ask Dad, who gives freely, right, without any holdups. He's not stingy with it, right? So if you look for understanding, what do I do? What should I do? My first response is always to develop that relationship. Dig deep into your relationship and learn to hear very closely the voice of your Creator, and differentiate the voice of your Creator from the voice in your head that is you, that's just bouncing off the inside of your head, or the whispers that come to you that want you to hate and to harm others. There are a lot of voices, and so learning to differentiate and to sense the presence of your Creator is, I think, one of the most important things that you can do. After that, it sort of becomes academic, because I can't tell anybody what they should do. Can protesting work? Fuck, man, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it's done much good lately because of what's happening and who's controlling it, right? All this stuff seems to be controlled and contrived, and I'm not even sure how much to believe of what comes through the news media. It all seems to be nonsense. Like, again, they're just feeding us a fear script, right? And my experience of the world is very different than what I see in the news. And I live in one of the places that's talked about a lot in the news in Seattle, and I don't see much of what they claim happens. And I see that people generally want to live their lives in a way that is trouble-free, but the troubles are put on them from an external source, and those are the things that they worry about. And so they get people to be afraid, so they'll accept a whole bunch of things. So what should you do? I would always recommend find that place, hold yourself up for a minute, and get in touch with your Creator, and learn to hear that voice clearly, and then do whatever the Creator says to do after that. that would,
Right, we're all called to do different things, so that's basically what it boils down to. I live my life basically by one philosophy: if you know something is the right thing to do in your heart, do it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's expedient or it's convenient or it's going to maybe, be received well, but if you know in your heart it's the right thing to do, do it. And if you're unsure, then it's probably not the right thing. Yeah. So that's basically it in a nutshell for me. But yeah, everybody is called to do different things, and only you can know for sure, hey, is actually protesting the right thing for you? It's probably right for some people. I mean, they're, protesting in large enough numbers.
Yeah, I can't say it's
get attention.
I can't say it's a wrong thing. I can just say that those who are doing it right now seem to have an illegitimate gripe, or again, they're being led by the wrong people. And to what Groom Digest says, a lot of people would think that that's a passive thing. But again, I'll go back to what I said before. So many people, right? They just want somebody to tell them with confidence what to do, and that's how we get a lot of people that are misdirecting others, as they simply speak it with confidence. that here, do this, right? Go out and do this, and this is going to happen. Test those things, right? See if that really happens. From my experience, I have no problem saying that this works is go talk to Dad, right? That I know Dad, and I know that he will not leave the willing heart alone. So I have no problem going, you want change in your life? You go ask Dad. Now, I will warn you, as soon as you do that, the shit is going to hit the fan and all kinds of bad things will happen because it's going to shake things up. Right, and that's just the way it is. So I would put that out in advance and going, if you think that somehow having a relationship with your Creator is going to make everything glorious and there's going to be unicorn farts and glitter, I think again, because it's the opposite, right? But you go talk to Dad, and you find out. That's what I would say, right? So I don't have anything to sell you or any secrets in the dark. It's all out in the open. It's not even mine, right? Go get it from Dad. He'll tell you what to do, and that is the advice I would give to anybody, because I don't know what your circumstances are. I don't know the best thing for you. I mean, I can tell you what I might do in similar circumstances. I can tell you what my heart is, and I can give a sense of what I feel like Dad might say. But I can't tell you for sure what the right thing in any circumstance is, right? But Dad knows, and he'll tell you if you ask him. And that I know for sure. And so I can say that with confidence, right? So I can't say, I'm not going to tell you what to do because it's not my purview. It's not my authority to do that. I don't even really trust my own decisions for my own life. I ask Dad for most things. Hey, what should I do here? Because these things are confusing, and I'm not always confident about the next step to take because I'm being pulled in so many directions, and so many things seem right or seem good, right? But all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. So not all things are necessarily what I should be doing, even if they seem the right thing, and even if they seem like things I would want to do. But I know I can trust Dad. I've learned to trust Dad over and over and over through a long period of time, that I know that he's the very definition of love, compassion, and wisdom. Like the smartest being I've ever come into contact with. So I trust him implicitly. And so I can say with confidence, you go ask Dad, and you listen closely, I think you'll be fine. I think you're going to be fine if you do that. Beyond that, again, circumstances make it very difficult, and it looks like we might, all of us, be up against a really difficult set of circumstances if the controllers have anything to say about it. They're really pushing for, again, their own type of world here that could shake things up dramatically. Well, if that is the case, then it really is important that you listen very closely to Dad, because it really is going to be about both your current and your eternal life that's at stake. Not just your mortality, but your soul that's at stake. And it is, if fear is what's driving most people, right? What we're told in Scripture, however you interpret it, it seems pretty plain that, again, you won't be able to buy or sell or continue in society at all unless you conform to what they're asking of you. And what they're asking of you is basically to sell your soul. I mean, that seems pretty clear. However you want to interpret what those things mean, what the mark of the beast is and all that stuff, it seems pretty clear that's what's being said. And so to that degree, if you are afraid and if you live from a place of fear, and you're just trying to stay alive, again, what Jesus said is, if those who try to save their life will lose it, but those who lose their life for my sake will find eternal life. And that's something, again, I believe because of my experience with him.
Yeah, well said. Well, what do you think, Baldy? Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to land the plane. If you got anything,
I think so.
If you got anything to add, Wayne, I'll put it in here. Otherwise, well, go ahead. Where can people find you, my friend?
I could be found at Files from the Conspiratorium on Facebook, or check out my YouTube channel, Alchemical Tech Revolution. I need about 130 some more subscribers to hit that magical 1,000 spot. So
let me make sure. I'll drop that. I'll drop that in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also got a couple of books available on Amazon or at pretty much any other book retailer at this point. Working on a third one now, hoping to have that out very soon. And can find me and usually Baldini's with us too every Wednesday night on Secrets of Saturn live, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hope to see a lot of you folks over there again.
I love those conversations. It's usually a great. Again, I've had some stuff I had to take care of the last couple of weeks, so but I should hopefully be back soon. And then, of course, you can certainly find Rose and I on Rose 777 channel Tuesday and Thursday morning with the Poppycock Report. So freaking early. And, oh, here she is now. Speak of the devil. No. We're not even going to start with that, are we? Rose 777, love you so much. Thanks for dropping in. Rose 777 and I do the Poppycock Report Tuesday and Thursday mornings on her channel. And you can join us for that as we break down all the news that fits and mock it because it's Poppycock. And then, of course, you'll catch me randomly here and there, but typically the streams are Saturday morning at 9 o'clock Pacific time, noon Eastern for Unintended Consequences. And then, of course, I do Ancient Wisdom for Modern World Sunday mornings at 7 Pacific. That's 9 Central. And then back here I'm here every week at 5 p.m. Pacific on Sunday evening, and Wayne joins me every other week for Sola Scriptura as we explore these ideas. And again, thanks so much for everybody dropping in. It's great to have you here. Thanks for stopping by, and much love to everybody. I hope that we answered some questions for you. Again, I know that some of these are difficult ideas to work out, but my position again is if you want to know, ask Dad. You'll always get the right answer there. That's my position, and I have never found that to be inaccurate. So again, thanks so much, and thanks for coming in. Let's see if I can find a little outro music to wind ourselves out. You guys can wrap up your conversations in the chat because I know that's something we like to do. So I'll drop in here something that how about this one? We were talking about Jim, my buddy, earlier. And this is a song that he and Timeless Journey and I, Joe Ray, we wrote back in the day. And so we'll leave you with that. Have a great night, everybody.
To the